Hello. Hope this sound is fine. We are starting the show in about 2 minutes. Right after that song is over, the fear affair. What next? It is the point of our meditation this evening in the Sabbath Sundowner. The light that subdues fear. With Christ there shall be light, and Christ is ever near. Hello family, how are we doing tonight? Welcome to the Sabbath Sundowner on Edel 001 TV. My name is Caleb Mungasia, and I invite you through our statement of meditation this evening. And as you see the title of our show, The Fear Affair. And the question is, what next? The fear affair. And the question is, what next? In a world of pain, in a world of distrust, a world of concern about the past, the present, and the future, and all controversial issues, real and imagined, that constitute the matrix of human affair. What is our position? What is our approach? And what is our game plan as far as fear is concerned? The term fear appears several times in the Bible, and we are invited to be of good cheer, to be courageous, and to be of good cheer. As far as the human existence is informed of today, fear is part of us. It has been there since the fall of man. But as the world seems to wrap up, of which it will surely do, fear has intensified. And in the Sabbath Sundowner today, we want to talk about this issue. We want to have a defined way out of this issue. Whether it is spontaneous or induced, it is something that we all battle with every day. Many days, wherever I have listened to people speak about fear, the primary statement that they stress the most is that fear is imagined and it's not real. But the truth is, fear has incapacitated humanity for centuries. For the purpose of this broadcast, I have broken down the element fear as a constituent of about 5 main things that define the human life. We have fear that stems from society, that we can term social fear. And this happens within our family, in the nuclear family, extended family. It happens in a work environment, a business environment, our interactions with other people. Social fear, train, workmates, people poisoning one another, greed to ascend the ladder at the expense of life and peace of other human beings. The world and society may say that this is imagined, but we know that it is real. Every time you turn on your TV during the news hour, a day hardly goes by without bad news. The bad news is a father who is entrusted with the role to be a protector, to be a provider, to provide leadership for his family, has neglected his role, and because of the pressure of social issues and many other things that we may not decode at this moment, he has claimed the life of not only his children, the children of his bosom, if you like, but also claimed the life of his wife, we may say beloved, and ultimately claimed his own life. This is the kind of fear that we are talking about. We live with people, we sit and dine with people, we sleep in places with people, we share our concerns with people, we trust in people. But truth be told, there comes a moment when things are not what we think they are. In a family setup, what do you think happens when a woman encounters physical violence within a home environment, a place where they're supposed or where they should have solace and comfort, when the world outside has scorched them badly, what do you think happens? When a man fights out in the world to bring bread home and make the lives of his people better, only to come home to a toxic environment, what do you think happens? When children face danger out in the world and then they turn to their home for solace, only to put up with the lives of abusive mothers and fathers, stepfathers, stepmothers, and even the members of the larger family. Social fear. It happens in our churches. The degree of gossip and negative criticism has overtaken the degree of compassion and correction with love. It is a sad state of affairs. Social fear. A saying goes that once bitten, twice shy. Do you think when someone has been betrayed in his or her social circles will still have the energy to try again? The future seems uncertain. It seems humanity has lost its values. Things are no longer the same, neither will they be ever the same. And that's why the Sundowner thinks that we must talk about these issues. Yes, we may not change everybody, everyone else, but perhaps, if we can commit to be positive agents of social transformation, if we purpose to, at least instead of being heaps of destructive criticism, maybe if we change the phase and be agents of positive criticism and be ready to help more than being very ready to criticize and destroy, just maybe the lives of the people that surround us may be meaningful. The fear of the economy. During the 2007-2008 recession, in the American context, the real estate market that most people treasure so highly collapsed. Speaking in terms of the Kenyan currency, if you had bought a house for 3 million shillings during the recession, you could sell the house for up to 500,000. In normal circumstances. We could expect that you sell more, but that's what happens in an economic recession. Business people fear. Buyers, sellers, they fear. They fear to invest. They fear. Buyers fear to acquire new assets. Money loses value. As people begin to explore alternative methods of commerce. It is about 2 years since the world faced the COVID pandemic. How many companies closed down? How many startup businesses that were almost breaking even collapsed? How many people lost their jobs? How many people downsized their living style? The fear of the economy. Prices of commodities have been going up steadily, going up. A few years ago, a kilo of sugar was 60 shillings. In fact, when I was born, we could buy a kilo of sugar for 44 shillings. I remember I bought at least a kilo of sugar for 44 shillings. Today, we're talking of a kilo of sugar going at 150, 170. You still think fear is imagined and not real? Could be time for you to think twice. Traders are fearing for their businesses. Banks are making more strict policies that it is now quite difficulty for people to secure credit to advance their investments. With technology, mobile banking has mushroomed. Mobile credits have saturated the market. Many people may not speak about it, but the reality on the ground is millions of people, not only in Kenya but across the world, are battling with bad credit. Most of them are in the black book of the CRBs, the Credit Reference Bureaus. Loans from Mshwari, loans from KBC, it's called KCB M-Pesa, loans from Okash, loans from Branch, loans from Tala, loans from M-Express, and other small loans. You wanna tell me that there is peace in this? I think there isn't. The fear of the economy is real. And unless we do something about it, we surely not only perish, but we shall perish as fools. Political fear. Our country has been in an election mood that began with an intense campaign period and culminated in the election of leaders into office, with some winning and several others losing. Based on the history of our country, some people imagine that if the voting patterns go this way, if we have this drift, then the country may descend into chaos. People travel to their homes up country. People closed down their businesses. Uncertainty. Not sure of what's going to happen. But we are grateful to God that the period has ended well without the country descending into chaos that usually end with the loss of life, the destruction of property, and many other unspoken things that happen behind the scenes that never find their way into the media, the mainstream media. Political fear. Another thing that we battle with is spiritual fear. What happens if I go to church and this happens? What happens if I subscribe to this religion? Many people, once again, have been disowned by their families because of the religion they subscribe to. I am not referring to any particular religion. It is something that happens across all beliefs. And it's even much worse that many more people have to pay the cost of their faith by shedding their blood. We've heard about these things. We have read them. Unfortunately, some have witnessed them firsthand. These things happen to their friends, happen to their family members. Parents are committing to teach their children on the way that they should go. But as children start to become of age, they lose track. And that sends a bundle of grief to the parents who spend their time and resources, committed themselves to ensure these kids, these children, may have a better life in the end. It is not the wish of any parent that the children should lose track of life in the spiritual sphere. We believe in the existence of a higher being whom we Christians call God. Other religions have their definitions also. We fear about our connection with God, whom we term as our Creator and our Redeemer. We stumble and we fall. And some of us think that our case is closed when actually our case is not yet closed. God has a reason for giving us breath today, at least to come back to our senses. He continues to do and has assured that he will continue to do to the end of the age. The last item in that category is health. The health crisis is real. Comparing the present modern times to the times that have passed, we all come to one conclusion, and that is the intensity of diseases today is, in terms of percentage, 100,000 times much compared to the time, say, of our grandfathers and grandmothers. Poor dietary habits, too much eating of things that are not food, and some diseases arise from things we absolutely have no knowledge about it. And this brings us to the statement that it is not okay to always blame someone for the disease they have. Only God knows their story. And the beauty of it is that the fate of every human being lies in the hands of God. As we fear for health, we cannot fear and only leave it there, but we can do all that is humanly possible and make the adjustments that need made, and that which is beyond us, hands of the Most High God. So right now we're going for an intermission, and then when we are back, we will have another question to ponder, and that is there anyone immune of fear? We'll have a view into the world in the past, and then we'll have a view of our context today. So the song that I want to play here, it's a cover of a song done by Kinondoni. It talks of maisha ni mlima. Welcome, let's enjoy this piece as we get to the next question. So this presentation has 3 sections. That was the first section. Now we're going into brief second session, then more brief third session, then we'll wrap this up. So welcome, and let us enjoy this song.
Wakati fulani kama binadamu tunaumia mioyo, hasa pale tunapoona watu tunaowapenda, marafiki tunaowajali wanapogeuka kuwa mwiba katika maisha yetu. Usikate tamaa ndugu yangu, tazama Yesu pekee. Yeye naye alikataliwa na wakwao, lakini alikubali kufa kwa ajili ya hao pia. Maisha yangu ni mlima, na mara chache huwa mteremko. Ajabu yamejawa taabu na matatizo, yakiwa mafupi sitalalamika. Waweza ajabu kwamba mazuri yote yatafutika. Tegemea asante toka juu. Nitaelekeza tumaini kwa Yesu. Wanadamu si kitu, wanapita tu. Kushindana nao nitapoteza taji. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Nitaelekeza tumaini kwa Yesu. Wanadamu si kitu, wanapita tu. Kushindana nao nitapoteza taji. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka.
All right, maisha ni mulima, but we must push on nevertheless, so that our testimony shall not collapse into vanity. The question we are asking ourselves is there anyone who is immune of fear? Is there a strong character in the history of humanity who has never faced fear? I want us to look at a few characters. The first character is Gideon. Gideon came from a humble background. His tribe was not renowned. His people were lowly in the society. And then something interesting happens. God commissions Gideon to lead the Israelites in fighting the enemy. Gideon, a man with little or no experience in battle, but entrusted with such a huge responsibility to deliver God's people from the oppression of their enemies. This man, he heard the voice of God, but like any other human being, he was not so sure. He needed an assurance. He asked for a sign. You can go read that in the book of Judges. God gave him a sign, not only once, but twice, as Gideon placed his request. Another person is Elijah. After triumph at Mount Carmel, Jezebel gives a decree informing Elijah that tomorrow, at a time like this, you will be no more. Elijah fled and he went and hid in a cave. But God was present right in the cave. This tells me, confirms to me, that even when we run away from the sources of our fears, God is still there with us to give us respite. Finally, Elijah triumphed. He is the man we see, God taking him into heaven, still alive. Interesting things happened in the life of King Hezekiah. During those days when a kingdom was invading a kingdom, the procedure was to send emissaries to take letters of notification. We are coming to attack your kingdom at this and this time. Sennacherib, senior commander of the Assyrians, wrote the letters. They had already conquered sections of the Israelites. And the letter came to King Hezekiah. An authoritative letter written by a heathen commander, and he tells him, submit, because we have already conquered most regions and we surely conquer you. The king, we could all expect him to put together his forces in readiness for the battle, but what did he do? The king feared. But this King Hezekiah had a fear of God in him. He went and spread the letter before God and cried unto him. God answered his prayer, and the enemies were defeated in ways beyond human comprehension, because the enemies turned against each other and they took the lives of their companions. King Hezekiah feared death. He got a word from the prophet that you are going to die, put your house in order. He cried unto God. God heard him and added him 15 more years. The Israelites witnessed how plague upon plague came upon the Israelites. And then a time came and God delivered them from the tyrannical regime of the pharaohs in the kingdom of Egypt. They are at the verge of crossing over the Red Sea. Before them, the Red Sea. Behind them, the heavily armed chariots of committed and angry Egyptian armies. The large numbers led by the senior-most commanders, ready to reclaim their fleeing captives. Then they cried unto Moses, why have you brought us here to die? And then the servant Moses, seeking his help, looking above, then God asked him to place his rod upon the waters, and it became a path, a dry path in the sea. The children of Israel, without even a second thought, and so they got into the dry path and crossed over. In the meantime, the Egyptian chariots, which must have been the very best at that time, with very strong, healthy horses. It seems they assumed nothing was a big deal, so they also followed the path. It is recorded that the word the children of Israel had, that the Egyptians whom you see today, you will see them again no more. And indeed, as it came to pass, the Lord made the chariots' wheels heavy. They could hardly move. The Egyptians could hardly move. And so the waters returned. They were consumed, and the word that the Lord promised, that the Egyptians you see today, you will see them no more, came to pass. And indeed, they saw them again no more. Christ, in his 100% human form, he is nearing the hour of his crucifixion. He goes with his disciples. 3 of them, asks them, pray with me. He moves aside and prays, asking the Father that if the cup could pass without him drinking of it. But he proceeded to say that, Father, let your will be done. He also had his fears in the human form. He dreaded the separation from the Father. And it came to pass, the Father's will was for him to drink of that cup. Indeed, he drank of it. And for that reason, we are guaranteed of life even if we die, so long as we die in Christ. As an individual, you can face fear. Collectively, we can experience fear. But what we do in that condition is what matters. And this brings us to our third and last question. Fear happens. And in the fear affair, what next? We're having our intermission song. When we will be back, we'll talk about what next, and that will wrap the Sundowner show, at least for today. So I'll be playing a hymn here. My life was distressed. He brought me out of the miry clay. It's a real cool music. So let me go ahead and get it on.
Was distressed, neath Jehovah's dread frown, and lo, in the pit where my sins dragged me down, I cried to the Lord from the deep miry clay, who tenderly brought me out to golden day. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the road to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah.
If the Lord be for us, who can be against us?
He placed me upon the strong rock by his side, My steps were established, and here I'll abide. No danger of falling while here I remain, but stand by His grace until the crown I gain. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the road to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah. He gave me a song, 'twas a new song of praise. By day and by night its sweet notes I will raise. My heart's overflowing, I'm happy and free. I'll praise my Redeemer who has rescued me. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the road to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah. I'll sing of His wonderful mercy to me. I'll praise Him till all men shall see. I'll sing of salvation at home and abroad, till many shall hear the truth and trust in God. He brought me out of the miry clay. He set my feet on the road to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah. He brought me out of the miry. He set my feet on the road to stay. He puts a song in my soul today, a song of praise, hallelujah.
Thank you very much. Now we get into our last question, and that is, what next? So far, we all come to a consensus that there is nobody who is immune to fear. Fear comes to us in many different forms, and anybody, it doesn't matter who you are. We've examined a few prominent Bible characters, and we have seen the kind of fear that they experienced. And so to us today, you have your own fears, I have mine, but the common denominator to all of us is fear. So what next? It is important for us to acknowledge that, as the preacher writes, there is nothing new under the sun. The fears we are facing have been faced by people who have lived years before we were born. The fears that we face are not new under the sun. We must come to that acknowledgement. Maybe the only difference is that we are experiencing them for the first time, and as we are prone to breaking down, then it becomes such a big deal, a very big issue to us. People have encountered fears, the common fears we face, the fear of death, the fear of bad health or illness, the fear of a falling economy, the fear of war, the fear of loss of life. All these things have been experienced by people before. We have one key assurance, that in their fears, God never abandoned them. In fact, God was very much closer to them than he was before they drifted. And now we have this assurance that we too, we can overcome our fears. We must not fail to acknowledge the past victories. As much as we may battle with fears, one thing remains, that God has given us victory over many other things in the past. And therefore, as we reflect upon the grace God has extended to us to overcome our fears in the past, as we look into the future, let us exercise that faith, that although fear may come upon us, we will overcome. We will overcome because the Lord has promised not to abandon us. What a sweet promise. We are not alone as we face our fears. Sometimes it may be common for people to feel alone, for people to think that perhaps the world is all on their shoulders and that it is only their race. No, it isn't. The truth of the matter is God has placed people in our lives for moments like this. Those people are there. We may not know them, but if we listen to the still small voice, the voice of God that speaks to our intuition, then even for the one that claims there's nobody they can lean on, will come to the acceptance that man is not an island, and God knows that, and that there's somebody somewhere who's ready to assist, at least to listen, even if they may not provide us for a lasting, they may not provide us with a lasting solution. Third, last, we may not change the past, but we can do something about the future. Some fears come with things that leave permanent marks in our lives. And no matter how much we may mourn about them, no matter how much we may curse and blame, not an iota of a thing is going to change. So we must live to the reality that the past is the past. There's not much we can do about it. If fear overcame us and things happen that subject us today to doubt, to fear and anxiety, tomorrow is a different day. We must cultivate optimism. We must cultivate hope. We must exercise our faith. Not only believe, but make all necessary and possible moves that can give our lives a positive turn. And lastly, God cares for us. Even in life's darkest moments of fear, God is still with us. He has given us promises, and as the psalmist puts it, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Now that is not the only text. There's so many other texts that you can refer to that give us the assurance that even when we are submerged in our fears, the Lord is right there. We may pass through the fire, but we shall not be consumed, because the Lord has promised the Lord should do. We may pass through the deep waters, but we will not drown. We may come closer to drowning, but God will be right there for our rescue. And I only want to read two more texts here, and then we'll have our last piece of music as we wrap up the show. The first one, common one, Isaiah chapter 40, verse 13, that one, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord, strength, they will soar on wings. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And the last text is Psalm 91, verse 1 and 2. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I'll say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. When faced with fear, I hope that we will resolve to first put our hope in the Lord and believe that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. At the Lord's time, He will make everything beautiful. So this brings us to the end of our show. And I play one song here. And until next time, peace. We are gone.
Maisha yangu ni mlima na mara chache huwa mteremko zaidi magu
taabu yakiwa mafupi sitalalamika. Waweza kutenda mazuri mengi, labda likajitokeza moja baya. Ajabu ni kwamba mazuri yatafutika. Tegemea asante toka juu tu. Nitaelekeza tumaini kwa Yesu. Wanadamu si kitu, wanapita tu. Kushindana nao tapoteza taji. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Namshukuru Yesu daima, asiyetazama kama mwanadamu. Kamwe Yesu hampi mgongo mkosaji yeyote. Mwanadamu atakuponda ponda. Hata Daudi alisema, heri kumwacha Mungu aniadhibu, maana lengo lake si kunihukumu tu, bali kuniokoa hata kesho. Ninasema nitaelekeza tumaini kwa Yesu. Wanadamu si kitu, wanapita tu. Kushindana nao nitapoteza taji. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Nasema nitaelekeza tumaini kwa Yesu. Mwanadamu si kitu, anapita tu. Kushindana nao nitapoteza taji. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije anguka. Ushuhuda wangu pia usije